I'm John McQuay with 8541 Tactical. This is Mail Call Mondays, the show that answers your questions about precision rifles, optics, and equipment. It's Monday morning. I've got my coffee, got my questions, and of course my wonderful new t-shirt. Well, we're going to start off with YouTube. Throttle Junkie asks, can you walk us through the mental checklist, gear, and methods you use to best ensure first round hits? Well, that could definitely consume an entire hour-long episode. I'm just going to go over the real basics on what my mental checklist is and how I'm thinking real quick when I get down behind the rifle to send a precision shot downrange. The first thing I do, if this is just a training type situation, I'm not under time, if it's just me on the firing line, I'll set the rifle up, position it so that it's on target, and then I'll stand up behind the rifle. I'll make sure that my body is square behind the rifle and that the line, since I'm a right-handed shooter, the line from the muzzle through the buttstock of the rifle will run back to my right foot, up my right leg, and through my right shoulder. So basically I'm standing just to the left of the rifle as it sits. I'll then drop down to my knees, down to a push-up position, and then I'll go prone behind the rifle, maintaining that perfect alignment the entire time. I'll slide forward until my shoulder hits the buttstock of the rifle. I'll then take a nice grip using my support hand to support the buttstock of the rifle and my firing hand on the pistol grip. I will pull my body forward into the butt of the rifle, raising my chest up off the ground just slightly. I'll get a nice tight seat into the pocket of the shoulder. I'll then relax my body down so that it's actually using my body weight to provide pressure against the buttstock of the rifle. There really isn't any push by my body. It's just my weight against the buttstock of the rifle. I'll then check to make sure that my turret is set on the correct setting and that I'm on the correct revolution, because one revolution off on your turret will most definitely keep you from getting a first round impact. I'll make sure that my dope is set correctly. I'll make sure that my windage is either zeroed out if I'm using holds, which I am most of the time, or if the wind conditions are such on that day that I'm not able to accurately use a hold on the scale, I'll have a little bit of windage dialed in and compensate for the rest with a hold. I'll double check my data compared to either my data book or my ballistic computer or my drop chart, whichever the case may be. Look downrange, verify the conditions again. Generally, I'm either watching a mirage, or if the wind is kicked up to the point where it's laid the mirage down, I may be watching the vegetation or other factors to give me an idea if the wind has increased or decreased from my initial call. I'll adjust my hold based on that. I'll inhale, I'll exhale, and when I exhale, this is a very important mental trick. When I let that breath go, I'm letting everything go. I'm totally emptying myself. It's as close to Zen as you can possibly get. There's no stuff going on at home. There's no pressure from work. There are no outside factors. It is simply exhale, let everything go, and then it's just me and the target. It's why I tell people that shooting precision rifles is my meditation. It's my version of Zen. So exhale, press the trigger. Now, the amount of time that goes through exhaling and pressing the trigger is very compressed, but what you actually need to do in that process is you're exhaling, you're indexing the trigger with your finger, making sure you have proper trigger position. Trigger's on the pad of the finger. Your second knuckle is at a 90 degree, and that you get that nice rearward press. When you engage the trigger, you're focusing intently on either the center of the crosshairs or on your hold point in the reticle, depending on how you intend to engage the target. Focus intently on that point. Make sure that point is lined up with the target. As you press the trigger, you're not thinking about the trigger press, you're thinking about where that target is lined up and focusing intently on that point until the rifle recoils. That's where we differ between that surprise shot A lot of people say let the shot surprise you. I don't believe in let the shot surprise you, because if you're tuned to that weapon, you know exactly where the trigger is going to break, but you shouldn't be paying attention to where the trigger is going to break. You should be paying attention to your sights on the target as the trigger breaks. Once the trigger breaks, pin the trigger to the rear till the rifle comes through recoil. That's your follow through. Now you want to get back on target as quickly as possible. Get your crosshairs back on the target and watch for the splash, because very frequently if you're shooting something especially like a 308 at 1,000 yards, you're more than likely not going to have a first round impact on an MOA or smaller target. So you're going to want to watch for the splash. As soon as you get the splash, you're going to want to be able to read it, correct off of it, and send the next round downrange. Well, I hope that answers your question, because that's about as in-depth as I can get without actually breaking this down and doing a whole episode just solely on that process, which I do intend to do. It's just down there on the list a little bit. Our next question comes from MKC Cole on YouTube. Any perspective on using compressed air to clean? I used on my handguns, just wondering if perhaps on rifles it may or may not be recommended. Well, compressed air is a decent tool to use to blow out dust and grit and dirt. It's not going to do anything for that sludge that you get when lube and carbon build up. It's not going to do anything for baked on carbon or copper fouling or any of that stuff. So it does have a place if, for instance, you hose out an AR lower with brake cleaner. Compressed air is great to knock that brake cleaner out and dry it out. If you have to lube a trigger and use Zippo fluid to lube the trigger, the compressed air again is great to blow that out. Keep compressed air away from your optics though. A lot of air compressors have oil in the tanks and in the lines, and that little fine mist of oil can really do a number on your optics. Additionally, you don't want to be attacking the O-rings or blowing air anywhere that air really does not need to be. Additionally, for those of you that don't own an air compressor and you may be tempted to go get those little bottles of keyboard cleaner or compressed air, be very careful what you use those on. You'll notice every now and again when they get low, or if you turn them at a right angle, you'll get a liquid that sprays out instead of a gas. That liquid is below freezing and it can really damage certain things. You really wouldn't want to spray that on your optics, on your glass lenses. Depending on the temperature, you may end up cracking a lens. There are a lot of things on the weapon that may be damaged by extreme cold like that. So be careful with the keyboard cleaner. Fist of Oak asked, in the context of tactical matches and hunting, what would I really give up with a Vortex Viper PST 4-16 by 50 FFP compared to, for example, a Nightforce NXS or Schmidt & Bender PM2 with similar specs? We get this question a lot from guys that are really on the fence on how much money they want to spend on optics. The big thing that you get with the top-end optics versus mid-price optics is reliability. What you're spending with that extra money goes towards higher quality control, better materials, and some design differences. What I've seen in the field is basically when you end up going with a Nightforce or Schmidt & Bender scopes of that end, then you can be pretty sure that out of the box it's going to do exactly what it needs to do, that you're not going to have to worry about any tracking issues, you're not going to have to worry about any durability issues. And when you go out on that trophy hunt that you've spent thousands of dollars, or if you're going to that tactical match that you've spent thousands of dollars to fly across country and a couple $100 entry fee, that it's going to work. It's going to be there for you and it's going to do what you need to do. Now, if you don't have the ability to go with those kind of optics, then something like the Viper PST is a viable option. Vortex has a lifetime warranty on their optics, so if you get one, you use it for a couple of years, something happens, it breaks, you can be sure that you're going to be able to send it back and get it fixed or get a replacement. They will function just fine. We have a lot of the Vipers show up at tactical matches. We've got a couple of guys here locally that use them in our local matches, and they work. But again, they're not on par with Nightforce and Schmidt & Bender, nor are they designed to be. They're not competing in the same arena. So what I would say is if your budget allows for night force, Schmidt-Bender, etc., then go with it. If you want to save some cash, or if you need to save some cash and you can't afford other pieces of gear, or you can't afford to build a quality rifle because you're spending so much on glass, then Viper PST is going to get you there. On Facebook, JD asks, I bought a Caldwell Wind Wizard. It only tells wind information and temperature. I was at a match on Saturday, but I really didn't use it. I overheard someone say that you point the wind meter at your target rather than the direction the wind is blowing. Well, JD, they're incorrect. You need to point your wind meter in the direction the wind is blowing in order to get a proper reading. And what I recommend is just simply turn and face into the wind. It's very easy to determine wind direction when you feel the wind blowing on your face, and you can equally hear the rumble in each of your ears. It's pretty quick, even on a light breeze, to be able to face into the wind. It's one of those instincts that we're just really built with. I've got my Kestrel right here, and what I'll do is I'll face into the wind. I'll simply hold the Kestrel straight out in front of my face with the display obviously facing towards me, and read what it says. You'll then take that wind reading and you'll adjust your wind call based upon if it's a full value wind, if it's a half value wind, quarter value wind, etc. Now, I will caution you on the Caldwells. The Caldwell Wind Wizards, we've seen quite a few of them that do not read accurately, and they read off far enough that it could actually cause you to miss a long-range target. So I really recommend picking up a Kestrel, even if it's one of the lower-end Kestrels. The one that I use is a Kestrel 2500 NV. It simply reads out wind speed, temperature, and pressure. It also has an altitude function, which I really don't use. I've talked to it before. I zero out the altitude function, and I use the barometric pressure reading as station pressure. The Kestrel will get you what you need for your ballistic calculations without going over the top. Now, if you can afford to get one of the top-end ones that reads out density altitude, then I suggest you go that route, because that's only one number that you have to plug into your ballistic computer. But if you can't afford that one, then the 2500 NV will get you everything you need to get accurate output from your ballistic calculations. Additionally, I got the NV because I like the fact that it has a lower intensity red light that really won't blind you if you're trying to use it at night. So that's a really good option. On Facebook, Nathan asks, what's your opinion on lapping scope rings? Do you think it's necessary for high quality rings such as Seekins or Badger? Thanks. Well, Nathan, I really don't like to lap scope rings. Both aluminum and steel rings have a coating from the factory to prevent corrosion and to prevent damage to the rings. When you lap, you actually have to cut into this coating. To me, this is not a good idea. Additionally, when you lap rings and you bolt rings onto that scope, now that set of scope rings is lapped specifically to that base and that rifle. If you go pull that scope off and you put it on another rifle with those rings, you've now nullified the effort that you put in to lapping those rings. So really, you would have to take the whole rig apart, you would have to lap the rings on the new rifle, and now you're just lapping every time you switch something around. I prefer to bed the base to the rifle to make sure that the base is true, and then use top-end rings like Seekins or Badger, so that when I bolt them on, I know that they're providing me as true a surface to mount the scope to as possible. That's the way I like to do it. I have yet to come up with a problem with it, and even on mid-range scopes, generally when I pull the scope out of the ring after a couple thousand rounds, I don't have any ring marks, I don't have any gouges, or anything that would lead me to believe that there's any undue pressure going on there. So I prefer to make sure that my base is true and then leave the rings alone. On Twitter, Nicholas asks, what's the advantage of fluting things, barrel or bolt? Well, the advantage of fluting really comes down to weight. That is really all there is to it. A lot of people think that fluting makes things stiffer. It does not. If you take two barrels, one fluted and one unfluted, both of the same diameter, the unfluted barrel will actually be stiffer. You cannot make something stiffer by removing metal. What the fluting does is it allows you to get a slightly stiffer barrel at a lower weight penalty. So if you're shooting in a competition where they have weight limits and you're really trying to get the most rigid barrel you can and still get under the weight limit, then fluting is a viable option. Fluting a bolt is really something that I believe is almost totally cosmetic. 90% of the bolt fluting that I have seen on rifles out on the line is cosmetic purposes only. When you put those big aggressive flutes in the ejection port facing outward with the action closed, all it takes is the wind or rain or a boot going by to kick dirt against those flutes. Then when you rotate the bolt to cycle around in, you're rotating that helix and you're pulling that dirt and grit into your action. This to me does not make for a more reliable weapon. Additionally, some styles of fluting really bear against that cartridge in the top of the magazine that's pushing against the bottom of the bolt. They can even shave brass off of the cartridges. Some of the fluting is that sharp. So I tend to stay away from fluting on the bolt. There are a couple of rifles out there that have fluted bolts that you really can't even tell by looking at the outside of it. Accuracy International is one. They flute their bolts with a very shallow fluting, and the fluting is inside the action to where all it does is give dirt a place to collect if dirt is already inside the action, and it also helps prevent that surface area from freezing against the receiver. So Accuracy International actually has fluting that increases reliability. Most of the fluting that you see on bolts are nothing but a detriment to reliability. I haven't measured or haven't weighed a fluted and unfluted bolt, but I have a hard time believing that the fluting that we see on bolts is giving you that much of a weight advantage over an unfluted bolt. But the reason it's really done, it looks cool. And I'll be the first to admit those spiral fluted barrels are pretty sexy looking. Even my wife likes the way fluted bolts look. So, if you're doing it for looks, rock on. If that's the style that you're going for, just don't fool yourself into thinking you're doing it for any kind of functional improvement. Anthony on Twitter asks, AICS or XLR, which one is the best overall? You guys have been burning me up with the chassis questions here lately on which one is better or which one is best. We really try to stay away from the best thing here because so many of us like different things. We're individuals, we have different body types, and we have different preferences when we get behind a rifle. So it would be a disservice for me to tell you that this is the best chassis. I don't know you, I haven't had a chance to take you out to the firing line and set you behind different rifles and see which one you work best on. So try to get away from the best thing. Chassis are set up to have different strengths and different weaknesses. None of the chassis I've gotten behind yet are perfect for everything. They each play to a different kind of role. Additionally, we had this discussion previously about on one of the internet forums about some guys just really dislike pistol grips on bolt rifles. So it would be a bad thing for me to tell you, say for instance the XLR is best when you don't like pistol grip stocks, and there you go. I'm recommending you something that you really are not going to be satisfied with. So what I recommend is get behind as many as you can possibly get behind. If you're in a situation where you're out in the middle of nowhere and you don't have any other shooters near you with the chassis that you want to look at, then you may have to bite the bullet and go ahead and order one and then get it in, try it out. Obviously, keep it in new in box condition until you determine that that's the chassis that is going to fit you. Now, let's say for instance that you order something like an XLR, which has a little bit of a wait time right now. once you get that chassis in and you try it out, unless you've ordered something absolutely off the wall, chances are that you're going to be able to turn around, you're going to be able to put that on one of the gun forums or on Gun Broker, etc., and you're going to be able to sell that off for either what you have in it or just a little bit less and not get hurt at all, because there are going to be guys out there that want it now and don't want to wait for the wait time that most of the manufacturers have. And the same thing goes with fiberglass stocks. A lot of the fiberglass stock manufacturers have wait times right now, and you can turn around and get those back out if it's not exactly what you wanted and not really get killed on it. Now, there are a ton of different stocks out there, but what I can tell you is if you really like the AR type stocks, then the XLR is a good thing to look at. If you like thumb hole stocks, then obviously there's the AICS. If you really like a more traditional feel and you like a really big pistol grip area, then the Whiskey 3 is an excellent chassis to go with. It really has a beefy feel to it. Even though that buttstock looks kind of dainty, the stock just really feels solid and has a really beefy feel to it. So that gives you a little bit of idea of which ones to be looking at depending upon your likes. I've not seen any of them that are less accurate than any of the others. The accuracy is really going to come down to your action and how well it's been shooting prior to bolting it in to one of these chassis. If there's a problem with your previous stock, then obviously bolting it into the chassis is going to make that rifle more accurate. All of those chassis offer you the benefit of an AICS type magazine system, so there's that benefit there. All of them are fully adjustable for length of pull, for comb height, and several of them have the ability to swap to different pistol grip diameters or different pistol grip or thumb hole configurations. So shop around, try them if you can. If not, you may have to suck it up and buy it and be prepared to return it if you don't like it. Well, that's it for our show today. We may be a little bit short here, but we've been fighting technical difficulties. We've had lights go out and batteries fail and all kinds of fun stuff today. There's just something against us getting the show out on time, but we're going to give it every effort to try. Thank you for your questions. Remember, this show works on questions, so we need your questions. Please send us your questions in the comment section below or on Facebook or Twitter. If you like this video, please click that thumbs up button. If you dislike the video, please tell us why in the comments below. If you're a subscriber, thanks for subscribing. If you're not a subscriber, please click that subscription button. It doesn't cost you anything. We don't send you junk mail, and YouTube will let you know when we release new videos. That's it, and until next week, get out and shoot. Okay, for you guys that stuck around, we just got this baby in this week. This is a Drake & Associates Stalker Gen 2 rifle system. The highlights on it is it's a 16-inch barrel. It's got a brake on it. It uses the Cadex Strike 30 chassis system. It uses a RPA action. This is a quad light action. It's a 4-lug. It has a very, very short bolt lift. That's all the bolt lift is, from lockdown to open. It's a very interesting system. It's a folding stock. It has a fully adjustable cheek piece, fully adjustable length of pull. We just got this in to give it a run and see how well it performs. It's a very, very compact system. When you fold this thing up, you can easily stick this in a low profile bag, get in where you need to be, and get out without really being noticed. For law enforcement roles, I think this is an excellent option. Can't wait to get it on the range and see how well it functions. The trigger on this thing is a 2-stage and is a very, very sweet trigger. I've been behind it for about 3 days now, dry firing it, just working with the system to see what my likes and dislikes are. And one of the things that we'll comment on when we do the review video that I found very interesting is the ejecting mechanism on this bolt is set up so that the ejector is still in the bolt head. There's not a blade or anything in the path of the bolt like there are in some other systems, but it's not a spring-loaded ejector. The ejector operates depending on how hard you bring the bolt back. So if you fire it around and you don't want to be chasing your brass down the firing line, or you're in a situation where you're going to need to recover your brass and get out, then you can slowly bring the bolt back, tug it against the stop, and the case will just basically fall out the side of the receiver. If you're running the bolt fast and you run that bolt back, hit the stop quickly, and then drive it forward, then it's going to chuck that piece of brass out about a meter or two out of the side of the rifle. So we're going to get this out. We're going to get some video. Hopefully we'll get a chance to use our new Contour and Hero 2 cameras and give you guys some up-close worm's eye view of the action. If you have questions on this system, please post them in the questions section below. We want your questions so that when we do the review video on this, we can answer what you want to know about the rifle system. I'm really anxious to see how much of a recoil or how much of a noise monster this is. I think with the brake on there and the 16-inch barrel, it's probably going to be a little bit of a fire-breathing dragon with a full power 308 load, but it's going to be interesting to see. And we'll get the video out and we'll let you guys see what we saw. To the firing process, I think you guys will get a lot out of it.